And it's funny, like some of these things seem like
common sense. Yeah, obvious.
like, yeah, isn't that how it should be?
Yeah.
But it's not.
Unfortunately, it's not the case. Although it's common sense, 100%. This is why I'm saying it's a boring thing, because it's so in your face. It's not shiny at all. It's the most boring thing. For me, it's exciting, but anyway.
So, Victoria, I actually found you on LinkedIn, and I've seen some of your LinkedIn, saw some of your posts, and you talk about messaging and stuff. And we'll get into that part of this professional side of things in a little bit. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was who is Victoria and sort of what's her background? Why does she think what she thinks? And something funny I actually found was that you're actually learning Thai language for fun. You actually know 4 languages. So what are those 4 languages that you know?
Well, I'm using English, of course. English is not my language. And the second one is Spanish, because I lived in Spain and I had to survive and I had to learn the language, and it was on speed dial. I mean, with Spanish, it was very funny because I had to do a master's degree in Spain, and they assured me that everything is in English, no worries, come and everything's going to be great. And the moment I arrived in Spain, they told me like, oops, actually the master degree is in Spanish. And you won't get Spanish classes because they're exactly the same hour as your master classes. So yeah, figure it out. So it was a very interesting year of learning because I had to. My first language that I've learned is French. I've learned French for 12 years, and this is the language I speak the worst because I never had the occasion to practice it. I never interacted with people. I never did business, with French people. And even with the French professionals I engaged with, they were all talking English. So, and because of where I was born, of course, my mother tongue is Romanian. I know a little bit of Ukrainian, and also I started to learn Italian, which is a beautiful, beautiful language. But unfortunately, it's also a language that I don't know very well because I didn't have the occasion to actually practice it. So what I realized is that when learning a language, the best way to learn a language is not the Duolingo app, is you being put in a setting that you have to speak it every single day, or you have to read, or you have to swim. Because that's the best circumstance for you to learn, to get the motivation to learn a language in a way that actually it sticks, because there is one thing to learn the words on Duolingo, and there is something else when a native is saying something, a joke, and you want to get it, but you don't understand actually the lingo, and you're like, okay, can you actually explain what's so funny about it? So yeah.
By the way, you actually listed out about 6 languages. So English, Spanish, French, Romanian, Ukrainian, and Italian. That's insane, by the way. Just, the capacity to have so many languages running in your mind. And it's so funny that, by the way, like this is a sort of a side thought for a second. People often confuse like language with intelligence. Like, for example, like immigrants, when they come over and let's say somebody can't speak English and you're like an English native. So they're like, oh, like the perception is this person's not intelligent. Any thoughts there?
Language is a very interesting phenomenon. I love everything related to linguistics and to language, and there are people in people. There are people who have the patience and they realize actually they're acknowledging that not knowing the language, and when you see the person trying, you are giving them the grace and you're trying to be there for them. And of course, when we are in a rush, or maybe we have to do something fast, or we are not in our right headspace, we may associate unwillingly maybe the lack of language skills with the lack of intelligence or expertise, this is how the brain works, I guess. There are some assumptions and some stereotypes that we all have that we're not even aware that we have, and we don't have the time to stop and ask ourselves, like, wait a second, why did they have this thought? Why do I think like that? So, yeah, I'm not judging for but to the people who do that, I'm trying to be aware, and I know that in other areas I also make mistakes, making assumptions, and so this is just the flow of life, I guess, unfortunately.
Yeah, you were saying that you are really interested in like linguistics and sort of meaning. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, tell me more.
Okay, so first, just one quick note. When I listed that I know 4 languages, I thought about the languages that I can actually defend myself. Because if I don't want to say that I know so many languages, but I don't know, for example, how to ask for a drink or how, like, okay.
Most critical question.
Let me try to be honest here.
For a drink?
Or food, which is very important.
By the way, I mean, you sound like a very adventurous person because you like, maybe this is like a European thing. I'm not culturally aware. Maybe you can educate me a little bit, but you seem to have lived in so many different countries and have had so much different exposure. So I'm so curious, like, where all have you lived so far?
Okay, so I lived in Spain for a few years. I lived in Greece for a few years. Then I lived in Estonia. And I can't say that I lived, but I spent a lot of time in the Netherlands. So I had the occasion to embed, to absorb the cultural codes, the social codes of these different countries. So yeah, it's a big privilege. I don't know if it's a matter of being adventurous. It's just how life unfolded. And I just followed my path without having, without seeing myself as an adventurous person.
So what was it like because of jobs that you ended up going to these different countries, or was it some other reason?
In Spain, I landed in Spain with a master's degree. Like I told you that they were telling me that, no worries, you don't need to learn Spanish. Everything is in English. I didn't speak English just one day in Spain. It was only Spanish. And then I had the great opportunity to be surrounded by amazing people at the university, and they offered me a job and offered me the opportunity to continue my studies there. So this is how I stayed for another 5-6 years there. And then a moment came when I realized that maybe academia is not for me, so I want to try something else. This is how I started my freelancing job. So I landed in Greece, having an online activity back in the day. In Greece, I spent some time because I wanted to be isolated on an island, and I spent 5 years, I think, in Crete. 4 or 5 years.
That's an island? Crete is an island off Greece?
Crete is the biggest island of Greece. It has lots of cities, lots of villages, lots of mountains. I mean, it's a gorgeous place. It is remote, but it's a very self-sufficient island that allows you to explore and to discover a different way of living that is connected, urban, but at the same time is remote and somehow very connected to the nature. So I had a completely different experience there. But the interesting part is that countries such as Spain, Greece, they lack in one important area that for me is very important, at least, bureaucracy. So where to go? What country to choose from these amazing European countries that actually allows to do your business without trembling and worrying about every single invoice or every single accounting email or conversation. So of course Estonia was the choice because it's one of the most advanced countries in terms of digitizing bureaucracy and digitizing business logistics, accounting. I think that more and more countries are following this, but at the time Estonia was like the poster child of business and bureaucracy digitization. So this is why I decided to move there. So after Estonia, I lived some months in the Netherlands, and then I tested Barcelona, and then I tested Athens. So I was like, I lived a year as a nomad, let's say. Like I've been in different places as a digital nomad. I realized that I'm a big, huge, lazy cat that actually likes to have a home. That being a digital nomad has its own, beauty, and it's very, maybe lots of people are aspiring to this lifestyle. I tried it, not for me. So at the moment I'm in my home country because I've spent more than 10 years away from my parents. And basically, okay, yes, you engage every single day, you send messages, you call them, but it's not the same. And I want to spend some time here to actually to get to know them again and to allow them to get to know me as a formed human being. So yeah, that's the point where I'm at right now.
Well, when you say like, being a digital nomad is not for you, what does that mean for you?
Okay, so if we take this from a purely tax perspective, a digital nomad usually is a person who doesn't spend more than 3 or 4 months in one place. You can be a cyclic nomad. You can choose 4 countries, and per year you can live in these 4 countries, and then the next year you can again live in these 4 countries, like in a cyclic dynamic. Or you can just hop on. I mean, you can just travel and go from country to country to country. But this means that logistically, you don't have a place. You have to think about rentals all the time. You have to learn new infrastructures every single 3-4 months. You have to maybe form a different community. And it's good for extroverts. I'm an introvert, and for me, it takes time to actually form connections. And there's amazing people who can live this. But it's not for me because I like to have this stability so that my mind can actually focus on work and focus on the wildest part of B2B SaaS while I'm stable,
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the other drawbacks of there's advantages to traveling a lot because you can meet a lot of new people. But I also feel like there's a bit of a paradox because how do you build deep connections and relationships with people when you're constantly on the move? And so you're kind of you're not anchored physically and mentally anywhere. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's, as I said, this is not for me because I need this anchor. I need stability. I need to know my neighborhood. I need to...
need to know my neighbor. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And when you think about it, if you really want to get to learn a culture, you would like to spend more time there. You would like to spend more time than 2, 3, 4 months. Because you may see the touristical aspects of the place, but this is not the place. For example, when I was in Crete, when I lived in Crete, you see all these beautiful videos, 4K drone videos of the beautiful seas and the sand and the summertime. But you don't know you can't even imagine how beautiful winter is and how much different it is to interact with people who have nothing to do with tourism and actually get to know their way of living. And that's something you can't discover in 2, 3, 4 months. So, yeah.
Right.
What about you? Do you ever plan to travel, to have a nomad lifestyle? Or do you also like to be grounded in one place?
I'm like a homebody. If there's any plans for after 8 o'clock, I don't even go. I'm just like, no.
Same.
I mean, I was very different when I was in my teenage years. I used to party a lot, stay up late. Now I'm just like, no, I got to prioritize my health, my sleep, because I'm like, if I sacrifice my sleep today, the next 2 days are going to be horrible.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't care how amazing, how cool. Nope, don't want it. Don't care. Nope. It's a little bit antisocial, but I even had an intervention. My friend showed up at my door. They're like, Paul, is everything okay? You don't come out anymore. You don't do anything. I'm like, guys, I'm fine. They were just worried about me. They're like, hopefully everything is okay. You're not so silent, are you? What's happening?
Same happens to me. Like, luckily, I have friends that they know that, okay, if she doesn't go out, I mean, we have to go at the door and actually knock and drag her out. So, and sometimes I'm like, maybe you should stay over. We can have some coffee. We can have some. Like, why do you? I mean,
This is so relatable.
no, because at the end of the day, especially when you have a lot of meetings with people from different countries, for friends it may look like you are closed in one space, but you actually, through internet, you have access to the entire world, and sometimes you end up so exhausted because you had a meeting with someone from Mexico, then with someone from Hong Kong, then someone with the Netherlands. So it's like, no, I am good socializing. Believe me, I'm spending more time in meetings than...
Yeah, my God. Actually, that brings up a really good point because, before we hit the record button, you were talking about that you actually took a break for a month. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of thinking about that too, is like, just recently I had like a thought process. I didn't take a break or anything, but what I was thinking about was, the LinkedIn machine feels like, when you're posting, you're commenting, like you're doing progress. It feels, but it's artificial progress. Like, what progress is happening? Like, it's, there's just so much misconception, and you can kind of get lost into the weeds of like the day to day. So I'm really curious, like, if you're open to sharing, like, what's the last month been like of reflection and just taking a pause for you?
So I started posting on LinkedIn a few months ago, after a few years break, and I followed all the algorithm rules, like you name it, creating the first 2 sentences that sound like a hook, or commenting 15 minutes before posting, or comment for comment, or timing posts. And I did engage, and I did met great people. I mean, I met you on LinkedIn doing all these algorithm games. Like, there is some merit to that. But as I was telling you, at some point, I realized that I was over-engineering and over-polishing my content, my posts, because I was trying to make them marketable somehow for LinkedIn. I don't know what my brain decided that marketable means, whatever this means. But after I was finishing writing a post, I would realize that the post is not what I initially wanted to say. And as I was telling you, it looked like a great, beautiful framework that actually can be used in the real life. And I said, okay, it's great, but this is not what I want to do. I mean, I want to be able to be free, to be able to go on LinkedIn, post whenever I feel. If I feel like I want to write and post something on Sunday evening that no one is like LinkedIn, I will do that. And at the same time, I started to write for myself, like, without an internal audience. What does my voice sound when I'm thinking that I won't be posting that? And I was surprised to discover how much easier the writing became. I don't spend 2 hours on the first sentence. And actually, I stopped using ChatGPT altogether for the creation of the content, because I have things to share and I have things to say. And of course, I'm using it for grammar, but it became a pleasure to write. So I think I'm ready to go back to LinkedIn. And I don't know exactly what shape or form this will take, but I know for myself one thing. I don't want to engineer my presence on social media. I want it to be organical. I go whenever I feel the pull. I engage with the people that are really interesting, and I see a post and I have something to say. I write about the things I care, and just that. Like, let's see if this can bring more serendipity into my life, because this is what feels natural. When you look at the hour and you say, okay, it's 3 p.m. I have to go now and comment and post and spend 1 hour. It's every single day. This is exhausting. This is not natural, and this is no. So yeah, it was a good month to stay away from performing, because at some point LinkedIn became like a performance, like a performative act, as if you're on a stage and you're not yourself. So yeah, this is how I was losing my authenticity, my inspiration. So hopefully with this new approach, things will be different, but I don't know yet.
Well, firstly, I really appreciate that you're kind of sharing some of these things, and I'm pretty sure like so many other people are on the LinkedIn hamster wheel, and it's so easy to get caught up in like all the things that you just described and lose sight of like who you are as a person and what do you actually care about, and what does, like you said, what feels human and organic. And then so it's not only like the scheduling thing, but like, oh, you got to like you said, you know, like posting 15 minutes before you post whatever. Honestly, like personally, I've never done any of this. Like I just post whatever I feel like. I comment when I feel like it. I don't even give a shit. Like I'm like, none of this stuff matters to me. Like I'm gonna, whatever I like to pursue. Like if I'm doing a podcast, I don't care if it gets no views. I don't care about a structure. Let's get a hook in. No, I just have organic conversations. I just do things that internally feel like I want to do something I'm curious about. I don't need some external validation for what I'm doing. It would be nice if it gets something, sure. If it doesn't, I don't care. I don't care. And so I really align with sort of what you're saying is it has to come from a place of like the cause, not the effect. So I think what you were kind of doing, it sounds like, I could be wrong, you're kind of trying to find what the cause is, not the effect of where is this coming from. And you're removing all the crap around it and be like, wait, what do I actually care about? What do I actually want to pursue? What are my actual thoughts? What do I actually want to share? By the way, I'm curious, like what triggered this in the first place? Was it like something happened, or was it like a specific event or something that happened or some conversation that triggered you to take a month off?
I think it was something cumulative. When you try to understand more or less where you want to go professionally, and when you realize that, wait a second, what's happening now on social media actually is not the real life. We like to flatten every single nuance and every single complexity and to give it on a plate as a one-liner. And apart from that, what is the type of people I want to meet? And on the other hand, what is actually the reality? Because I was telling you that I was posting all these neatly beautiful boxed frameworks and I was thinking like, if I take this and I go into a corporation where they have inertia, they have internal politics, they have so many issues that the last thing they want is to have a beautiful framework or someone telling them, this is the mistake you're making, this is what you have to do. It doesn't hold. And no, this is not how the world works. And I have this feeling that we are creating professionally lots of echo chambers where we think that the reality is one way because of the influencers trying to push a specific way of thinking. And when we are making contact with reality, things are actually very different, very messy, super chaotic, super complex. And what we have there, like, and all this reflection made me realize that maybe it's worth stopping and actually rethinking and recalibrating and making sure that what I'm doing is actually in contact with reality.
That's like poetry, by the way. That was beautifully said. That was so well said. Looks like your time off really helped you.
Yeah, lots of thinking.
One thing I found really cool is like how you've sort of framed some of your messages on LinkedIn, even how you've crafted your copy on your site, the SaaS Minds. My favorite thing is the boring way. Tell me the genesis of the boring way. I love that. I love that so much. I was like, fuck, this is so good.
Thank you.
You're like the exact opposite of the new shiny thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. It's so good. It's so fresh. It's like I've never seen it crafted like this before in my life.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's what you said. Everyone is chasing the last hack trick. The last strategy. Me too. I am the same. Like, show me a shiny object. I'll be like 5% number, and I'll go for it. Like, ooh, what does button do? Cool. Let me check it. But then I realized, like, okay, so actually, I asked myself, if there is one thing to do to solve a problem, what's this? Where can I act? At what level can I act to solve this problem? And you always go to the origins. And what I'm doing is focused on software taxonomy, on information architecture, on feature prioritization. These are boring stuff. This may sound like things that engineers are doing, but this actually is the foundation of marketing, sales, customer success, team communication, and messaging. And no, I mean, from my experience and from the teams I talked to, no one owns this aspect internally. No one decides how are we going to present our software publicly. Because, okay, we have our microcopy, we have our internal taxonomy that makes no sense to the external people in most cases. In most cases, not in all, of course. No one decides what features are we going to prioritize. Actually, last week, I saw on LinkedIn, okay, I'm not posting, but I'm still going on LinkedIn. I saw for the first time a product marketer from Velaris, I think. I don't know exactly the name of the B2B SaaS company. And they were saying that actually we tested and we checked on which features people are clicking. And we realized that we were prioritizing the wrong capabilities because people were interested actually in something else. This is the first time I saw someone talking in this space about these things. And then you have information architecture, but not from a UX perspective, because the UX is it's an important aspect, but it's guiding people through their experience on the website, for example, or the demo, but UX, information architecture, from my perspective, is how do you disclose the information in a way that is not overwhelming? How do you structure the information in such a way that is not overwhelming, and it can be consumed in bits, and it allows the person to find their way in your product. And what's very important is that I'm not talking about simple B2C or simple B2B SaaS. I'm talking about B2B SaaS that have multiple products, multiple capabilities, different markets, different verticals, different ICPs, and it's a mess. So yes, I'm doing the boring thing. I'm actually fixing the chaos that stays at the root of messaging and team communication, because this impacts team communication too. So that's the genesis, that's the origin of the boring part.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because like one of the things I think about is like, any complex software, like if you have like the HubSpot, the Salesforce, the Apollo, they're really, really complex products. And of course, like you said, like the UX is an important part of it, of like how you sort of navigate all that stuff. But even like how are you framing what this thing is? How does it nest into like, because one of the experiences I had is like, I find like products like Salesforce, or like whenever I had to do like my timesheets, I never did them, by the way. I just had somebody else in my company do them. Or like a HubSpot or Apollo, I find them so complex and so overwhelming that, for example, I ended up, when I was trying to pick, I'll take like a real example. Like I was trying to figure out what email software should I use. Mm-hmm. So I looked at the market and I said, okay, there's all these different ones. And I picked instantly because it had like the most, number one is the least amount of stuff. And it was the simplest to understand, not only from a language perspective, but also the UX perspective, but also like the UI perspective.
Yeah.
And so I was like there's one more sort of side thought that I have here is, and this is my point of view, I feel that all companies should do this, is that whenever you purchase any software, like, Zoom, let's say I purchase Zoom or Figma or whatever that tool is, I should be able to turn, like like Adobe does this. Mm-hmm. You can go into the preferences and turn off features that you don't want to ever see.
Perfect. Yeah.
So, but most products don't do that. Like Adobe allows you to like just turn off everything that you don't want to see. You just turn off all those things and you just focus on the ones that you actually need. Like Photoshop is such a great example of that. And imagine if you could do that with Apollo, Zoom, instantly, Salesforce, HubSpot. You're like, I don't want to see all this other crap. Like, I don't want to see like AI companion. Like, fuck off. I don't want this. So I know I just said, I went on a little bit of a rant there. I said like 10 different things. But let's kind of go back to like, what is your observation of like, let's say somebody is doing like, have you ever worked on like, or actually, let me reframe this whole thing. Can you think of a product that you worked on and you could share that case study, and you could start with maybe like when you met them first, where their head was at, what their existing belief system was, and then when you started working with them, how that changed over time, how you got their buy-in, and then what the net result of that was from a consumer user adoption or usage perspective, blah, 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 blah.
What's surprising is that people are aware of that. Maybe they are not exactly aware of the solution, but usually product marketers, executives, people that are working directly with everything that has to do with website messaging, sales, they sense the chaos. It's not that they are clueless but there are so many things in the day-to-day life that it's very difficult to fix the chaos or to carve some time and attention and dedication to fix the chaos. And the same way as we have technical debt, there is also messaging debt that is accumulating over time. As the product grows, if you don't have a strong public taxonomy, you don't have the right mental model to know where things fit for yourself internally as a team, not only externally. And the surprising thing is that companies, actually, they're aware, people in companies are aware that there is a problem. The most surprising example I can share with you is when I started, I didn't even know that I will focus on taxonomy. But I started with free audits, and I randomly approached someone on X, and surprisingly they said, yes, sure, yeah, share your thoughts. And I said, oh my, okay, hold on. And I shared my thoughts on how I see, and I wasn't even aware that what I'm doing this is software taxonomy. I was still focusing on the copy. I was still focusing on the clarity of the messaging. But when I reorganized the whole taxonomy of the product, of how it can be seen publicly, the CEO told me like, oh, I showed that to my team and we are going to use it internally to actually organize our product. Like, this reorganization made so much sense for them internally, not only externally, that they rethought entirely their mental model around the product. And for me, that was a huge validation moment, telling me that, okay, this is needed and actually people can benefit from this perspective and from this work. That may sound boring, but it's not. This work actually involves so many nuances and so many details that I keep discovering. Because I like to say that I don't have a framework. Every single company is different. Every single product is different. Some products, they may need object-oriented taxonomy. Other products may need a different type of taxonomy. I used to love frameworks and I still love frameworks, but I'm realizing that you have to actually, as I said, make contact with reality and be there with the team, get to know the product, and then start working with the users, with the team, with the executives, and then create the right framework for them and create the right solution for them. Not come there with a pre-existing, solution, because this doesn't work. And what I would like also to add here is that software taxonomy, as I see it, shapes communication across all stages: marketing, sales, customer success, customer support, even product. And now with artificial intelligence, we are seeing that established companies are launching new features weekly, right? The frequency speed up. There are more and more companies showing up. I mean, in a few years, most markets, maybe not most, but lots of verticals, horizontals, niches will be overcrowded. So where is the innovation when there is actually no innovation? My bet is that the winning B2B SaaS company will be the one that can communicate their product the most clearly to every single stakeholder in a buyer committee. And the clearest, the communication that makes the most sense and it's consistent across all stages will make, this will be an important pillar for success in an overcrowded market. And I would like to share that there is a big difference between B2B SaaS companies, in which case the user is the buyer. You can have CRM such as for solopreneurs or for tiny teams that the executive is using the CRM. And it's something completely different when the B2B SaaS offers a product where the buyer is not the user. Because in this case, you have to make sure that your assets, your communication artifacts, your demos, your website, your user docs, everything talks differently to different needs of different people inside the company that you want to get as a customer. So this adds so much complexity to communication. And if you have a chaos, things are getting very hard and you may lose deals without even understanding why this is happening. But the main reason is that things are not so clear and people can't understand the value of the product.
I totally agree with you. Spot on. Yeah. I think that is so critical to solve because that is a big piece. If it's a software company, that's super critical. What is this software trying to do? What problem does it, for example, even if we take the Salesforce example, if a company is trying to buy, is in the market and they're looking at different vendors, they're looking at Oracle, they're looking at Salesforce, blah, 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 whatever, right? And they have to make a buying decision. And so now Salesforce is going to be, for example, is going to be used at so many different layers of the organization. And each of those stakeholders, like you described, are going to use it for different reasons. The front line maybe are doing time sheets. I'm just giving an example, right? And as you go higher up the sort of the chain, the executives might be looking at where's the org right now, right? HR might be looking at it from a hiring perspective. So you're right, each stakeholder has a different reason, especially in those complex kind of softwares.
Yeah.
So tell me more about sort of that experience of how you tackle those different stakeholders and how do you help teams reorient themselves? Because it's what we're actually talking about here is what you're selling versus what they're buying, and then who is buying.
First, I understand that maybe this term might be confusing for people who are watching the video, and I would like to clarify some aspects and specifically what do I mean by public-facing software taxonomy. When you create a product, you may have different features, different actions, different micro features, all grouped together. Maybe the designer is the one that is grouping by creating the dashboard. In every single company is different. But then you have to translate this product into something legible for the people that are looking at the website or they're checking the demo. And what this means? This means that public-facing software taxonomy is how you group, organize, nest, name, because naming is also very important, and describe every single capability of your software. And for example, I've audited a B2B SaaS company, and I saw, for example, that they have the dashboard, but they conceptually split the dashboard in two big modules that actually are overlapping. And on the website, you could see that module 1 had the same features as module 2, but they were named differently. So I think that doesn't actually make any sense. So I suspect that this happens because no one is owning this, the process of deciding how we will present our software. And you have issues like features that are overlapping, weird naming. I mean, if you, the thing that makes me laugh sometimes is to see some weird names that the company comes up with for specific features that you have no idea what they mean, but when you look closely, there is actually nothing innovative about it, only except the name. And this of course is confusing. And when we don't have the patience as future users, we want to go for the easiest thing. And we want, as you said, I mean, you would choose you in your example, you went for the platform that was the easiest. I mean, the easiest to understand. That you knew that you don't have to force yourself to understand what it does. So, but it seems easy, but this entire process actually requires a lot of thought, careful thought and experimentation, because you never know. I mean, I thought that you can work on public taxonomy looking only at the product, but actually you have to look at the users too, and to look at what are the things they care most about, how they name things, because maybe they have a completely different name and process for features or specific actions that a feature covers, and this name is not reflected in the taxonomy. So yeah, I'm sure I didn't answer your question, because I started to ramble about these things. But yeah, to tell you exactly, I'm at the beginning. This is something that it took me a year to realize that this is maybe a necessity in this field, and I'm still testing the waters. I'm still validating. I'm still running audits. I'm engaging with product marketers, with executives. I'm asking questions, because my goal is to make things make sense to the team. And for them to say like, oh, okay, now all of our chaos actually is solved, because this is the map we have to follow. And maybe not to follow, but this is like an organizing principle that we can organize our messaging around.
Right. I think one company that I know that I've been using for so many years that does such a great job of like capturing like what their product is, how it works, what are the use cases and workflows, and then where to use what piece of that feature in what sense and context.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think is Zapier. Yes. Zapier does, like, I'm such a big fan of Zapier, because like when I think about like, okay, so there's Zaps, and then there's like the canvas, there's the interface. How do they all work together? And how do I connect different apps, and even how they communicate? Like they show you, like, here's how you connect Google with this, and then you're like, oh shit, okay, this is what I can do. I found that I haven't come across many software products or digital products that communicate in such simple ways, especially when they're like builder tools. I find like Zapier to be one of my most favorite, most used products, just because of the way they express and communicate and nest and label and all that stuff. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Zapier? Any thoughts there?
Curiously enough, I stopped looking into MarTech and this type of B2B SaaS companies. I'm mostly interested in RegTech or SaaS companies that are offering solutions for governments or for very, very specific niches such as architecture or construction or even HR. So I don't have a fresh memory of what Zapier is doing right now, so I won't be able to share my thoughts on it. But I'll definitely check it, because since you mentioned it, now I'm curious, of course.
Yeah, first of all, I actually really like the fact that you're kind of like, let me go after industries where nobody wants to go. So actually, your messaging ties in with sort of your business model, which is you're like, well, what are the boring industries and like super complex areas where no designer, creative person wants to actually go work? They're like, I'd rather work on something cool.
Yeah.
Right? But that's where the opportunity is. You're like, how do I apply my skill set in a place where nobody wants to go? And then now you become sort of indispensable. You're like one of the only people doing this. So that's actually really smart from how you're sort of approaching the market?
It's also a curiosity. I started to look into regtech, for example, or fintech. Okay, not so much fintech, but specifically regtech and technology for governments. And I find it fascinating because there's such a huge degree of complexity. And these solutions, especially implemented with AI or converged with AI, can bring so many solutions, so many options, so many interesting innovation. Like for me, this is the area that is super interesting because maybe it's because of how much I suffered because of the bureaucracy in Greece or in Spain, or and I'm all for simplifying these aspects. Especially the relation of the citizen with the government. Okay, this is not B2B, this is B2C in this case, but you may have B2B2C companies that are offering software and infrastructure for governments to facilitate their connection and communication with citizens. I mean, this is huge. I mean, for me, this is so much more exciting than MarTech, to be honest.
Oh, I love it. There's like this personal angle where you're like, you saw the problem firsthand. You're kind of like a founder. You're like, you see like an actual problem firsthand. What do they call it? Like a founder problem fit? I think that's the correct term for it.
Oh, okay.
And because you've seen this problem firsthand and you're like, there has to be a better way. I know that public infrastructure and public and civic sort of infrastructure like in India is horrible. Like I'll tell you a story. Recently, like my team, this startup that I work with, we decided to go to India. And one of the team members is a US citizen. Mm-hmm. And so she had to apply for a visa. You can just do it online. The site where you apply for the visa online is so sketchy looking. It feels like it's a fake spam site, but it's actually the government site. So she's like, she didn't even go there. She actually ended up going somewhere else that looked a little bit more legit. But like, I know that's not, that is one part of the problem. Like in countries like, so one is, how do you make the life of an entrepreneur easier? Like when it comes to doing their taxes and invoicing, all that stuff. That's one part. But the other part is the infrastructure that exists is so horrible that you're like, is this even real? I think India would be like such a huge market for you.
I'm looking now at specific areas that are developing interesting regtech solutions, and it's not only that. You have enterprises, right, that are buying regtech because they are international and they have to swim in so many compliance and regulatory waters, and this is high stake messaging because if it's a regulatory technology, you have to be very careful with how you communicate and what you communicate. Same with fintech, because you have so many regulations. And this adds so much more layers of complexity on top of what you're selling, the product, the technology. So for me, all this is super fascinating. So it's not so much about specific countries, but specific clusters that are developing now different types of technology for high stake areas that are quite interesting for me. But it's not a limitation, of course. I'm just for fun. I looked this week into a website. I audited a website of a company that is offering an accounting software, but also human-driven services. And this is a very interesting, challenge, because how do you actually combine the software with the human-driven services when one ends and the other begins? Like, how do you how do you organize the whole thing? So, yeah, as you can see, I'm quite excited on talking about.
Yeah, tell me more. Like, how do you do that handoff? Like, I'm so curious. Like, what did you? So you don't have to take a name if you don't want to, but I'm so curious, like, what did you observe and what did you find was the missing link, and how did you approach, like, what did you find? I'm so curious to know myself now. Like,
okay. One problem that most B2B SaaS companies have is that they are hiding their features under benefits and huge words such as freedom or I don't know, like, and when you don't have a clear organization of your software, in this case for accounting software, the value is hidden, is buried, because people are coming to you with they already are informed what they need, and they may need something very specific and not a vague sentence. But also, how do you marry this with the human-driven services that are presented not as services, but as use cases? In this case, specifically, I noticed that the human services were meshed together with technical capabilities. So there was not clear where the technical capability started and where the human service ended. And they were translated into use cases by country, but they were not presented as such as capabilities, that this is what we are serving you, this is what we are offering. So people had to navigate. I mean, for you to build a whole panorama of what this company is offering, a whole overview, you have to navigate between different pages to connect the dots. I mean, the website doesn't connect the dot for you. Like, I am an entrepreneur in this country and I want to open a company in that country. What should I do? With whom should I contact this company? Should I contact an accountant? Like, there is no clarity around that. So, and it's an easy fix it's not an easy fix. It's an easy fix when you have the right taxonomy, when you present the product as it is, without hiding it behind benefits and claims. And I don't say that we don't have to use interesting, beautiful copy. Of course we do. But first, let's fix the foundation.
You're not, by the way, talking about deal, are you?
No. But now I'll take a look at it. I'm really super interested.
Because I think they kind of do that as well. I think, but that's actually really interesting. Is that, again, I constantly kind of go back to, like, what is somebody trying to buy versus what are you trying to, like, you're kind of framing everything as this is what we sell. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it's like that very, like, corny, like, cheesy example is like, do you sell the hammer or do you sell the whole, like, what do you sell, right? And so you could be like, oh, we have all these tools. And the guy's like, I'm just trying to make a little shed in my backyard for my dog. Like, that's what they're trying to do. Now you have all these tools.
That's a great example.
It's like, okay.
That's a great example. And in this case, I would organize the tools based on the process of the shed. Step 1, step 2, this is what you can do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. This is not for all B2B SaaS. This is not a taxonomy I would use for all B2B SaaS companies. But for some, this jobs to be done and step by step, like the whole process. Let me show you the arc. And we are covering every single process with these specific features and capabilities that you can, if you want to learn more, you can go deeper and read deeper about these specific capabilities. But when the person goes to the nav bar, they already can see, okay, I can do step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, this is covered. Okay, I'm already relaxed. I understand. There is a relief. Yeah. Yes.
100%. I think that's the feeling that I got, like, when because I always, like, when I use a certain software or tool or buy, like, something, anything, I buy anything, I always think about, like, what is it about this thing that made me buy this thing? Mm-hmm. Is it like, because my friend said that, oh, you have to try this thing. Is it that, like, for example, instantly, I was thinking I just need something that allows me to send emails at scale. And that's it. I don't want any other thing. I don't care about AI. I don't care about all that crap. I just need something like, and then when I started looking at stuff, I could see instantly, like, right away, communicate, just send emails. And it's just, I'm like, yeah, that's all I want to do. Boom. And the way they showed up, the way they communicated, their UI, everything aligned. It, like, had, like, that Apple-esque vibe. Like, there's no complicated, like, weird words and things and tools coming out of everywhere. It's just, so again, like, just kind of going back to sort of what you were describing. It's like when I was trying to make that decision, I'm like, well, and then I looked up online. I'm like, I watched a couple of YouTube videos. I was like, people, like, doing comparison videos of, like, Apollo versus Instantly. And then you start looking at your decision tree. But in your case, when you're working with these complex government stuff, there are probably no tutorials or no comparison videos. And So how do you think about the buying decision or somebody trying to do their taxes? How do you think about those scenarios?
But this is very different because you are the user. You are the buyer and you are the user.
That's what I was wondering. So that's what I'm curious. Like, how do you think about the whole thing in those contexts?
The first stage is to have the taxonomy. The first stage is to say, okay, this is what the product is. This is how we are organizing the product internally for us to know that it makes sense. These are the modules, the boxes, everything, to be clean. But then you can translate this into different ways. For example, you have the tools. You have the tools. You organize them around the process, and then you say, okay, with this process you can build a shed. With this process you can build all other type of thing. This is how you do it, and people can go exactly to where they need a shed. Okay, they have the information. They need a small tree house. Okay, they have the information for a tree house. But everything is because it's for the team internally, because they already organize the product in such a way around processes that for them it's easy to translate these processes in different use cases for different users, for different countries, because there is already clarity internally for the team. This is why I'm saying that the basics is so important. The foundation gives you everything. And it shouldn't be like super rigid or super strict, but let's make it, to make sense internally. Because I'm going to tell you why. It's even worse when you have the website saying one thing, the sales call telling you something else, and then you have the poor CS customer support people trying to tell the new users, like, no, what you read on the website, it's actually not what we do. And what the sales rep told you, we have that, but for the next year, it's not deployed yet. So it's such a huge blow for the new users. And you don't have only a problem if you messed up the messaging and the communication. You don't have only a problem with conversion or getting new users. You have a problem with users staying. But why I'm saying that? Because once you have the foundation clear and you make sure, I like to call this centralized decentralization. When you have the centralized taxonomy, you give the teams the freedom to create their own messages based on the same truth, according to their context, because every single team will have a completely different context. They will engage with different people at different stages. You don't have to control the teams, but to prepare this foundation for every single to be able to feed from this one source of truth that everyone agrees upon and everyone builds upon. But this is how we describe our product. This is how we present it, and we can then play with it. It's like building blocks.
Actually makes a lot of sense. Because there's sort of 2-3 things here. One is my default natural approach would always be, well, what do people care about? What problem are they trying to solve? And then where does this thing fit into that universe? Mm-hmm. And that could be like different use cases, different user, like for example, if it's like Salesforce again, I'm like thinking, okay, well, why is an org going to buy this? What does the executives care about? What do the directors care about? What do the middle management care about? Sorry. And what do the frontline workers, like, where is this going to touch them across the org? And they'll all have different reasons, roles, functions, capabilities, etc. And then I'll work backwards from there. That's how I would typically approach it, and then say, okay, if that's sort of the universe, that's the problem we're solving at that scale and it's that complex, then first of all, the view that each user will have will be different, right? And so now I have to sort of think about that whole architecture from that lens. Mm-hmm. But I think what you were describing, if I don't want to like misquote you, is but you were like, let's just first forget the users. Let's just first look at what we have. Let's see if it's organized properly. Would that be a fair characterization of what you're thinking, or am I off?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let's not split artificially the same platform in weird sub-modules that actually are not reflecting the reality. Or because what I'm realizing is that some teams are trying to adjust the product truth to different cases instead of having one product truth, and then these blocks play with these blocks accordingly. Like there is no one product truth. And the most important thing is that in some cases, different team members understand one capability in different ways. Because there is another thing that I'm focusing on a lot, and this is team communication, because this is a huge, huge problem. And unfortunately, very few talk about that. Everything starts from how we communicate with each other. And we have so much implicit communication, implicit knowledge. And this leads to so many issues. This is why I'm saying when you have the foundation, what you described, that you said it exactly, like you didn't misquote me or anything. But when we have this foundation, we basically have the product truth. We have how we organize this product truth internally and externally. And everyone can refer to this product truth, and we can be sure that no one will miscommunicate or fail in presenting a specific capability differently than it is on the website, for example.
Right. I
know that this sounds maybe very conceptual and theoretical right now, because maybe we lack a real life example. But I think what I'm trying to say is that by going back to the first principles, you can't miss it. Like, let's first take care of the first principles and grow from there and adjust, adapt, because I see it like a Lego, you know? You have modular blocks, you can play with them, you have different tactics related to information architecture. For example, there is a concept called progressive disclosure, that let's say you have a very complex capability, and how do you explain it? If you explain it on the homepage, people will run because it's super complex. So you are disclosing the complexity of this capability in stages. Like, this is a nugget. I mean, this is, I give people a small information. If they want to go deeper, they have the option to go to the product page. If they want to go even deeper, they have the option to go to the video, and so on and so on and so on. Like, there are so many ways to transform this foundation and to adapt it to different use cases and to play with this information and communicate it well. But everything starts from this. It's the branch of the tree.
Right. I think if I think about like a completely different category, and I think about like a different industry also, think about, and this might be more relatable to like just anybody listening to this, like who might not be aware of like some esoteric, like specific government used product that you and I might be passionate about. I was thinking like what you were describing, I was like, who does this really well? You know, I think maybe like even the iPhone, for example, like Zapier, I said before, Zapier is a great example who really execute this really well. I think even the iPhone does that really well, because it's like the iPhone is clear on what it is, but what they, even the way they sort of present themselves, like if you go to the Apple site, you just see iPhone, you can see the iPhone. But if you're like a photographer and content creator, there's like a separate deeper dive you can go into. But if you're like, let's say somebody who's like an analyst and stock trader, there's like a whole different universe you can go into with like the kind of apps and use cases that are there. But it doesn't waver from the truth of what the iPhone is, what it stands for, why it was made, and like the precision, the design, the specs, all that's there. That's like the center of gravity for it. But then everything else you can do with it becomes like these use cases, workflows, jobs to be done. And like the reason why you would get the iPhone. So a photographer might choose it because it has the best camera. You know, somebody else might choose it because, you know, it's a status symbol. It's got nothing to do with the features itself. Just because I have an iPhone. Like that's like the Indian market, for example. People literally go into the shop. I have friends like this also, by the way. This is a little bit anecdotal, where they're like, they'll go to the shop. What's the most expensive phone that you have? They're like, this one. Okay, just give me 2 of those. They don't even get internet on it. Imagine owning an iPhone but no internet. Could you imagine this? But there are. Anyways. So, I mean, that's an example that comes to mind. Would that be a fair example? Is that a bad example? Or what's missing there, according to you?
I think it's a perfect example of how you take the product truth. We know who we are, and this is who we are, and then you adjust it to different use cases, to different interests, in different formats, depending, because people are so different. That's the thing. People, from my understanding, we are all having different ways of perceiving and processing information. Someone may do well listening to a podcast. For example, I'm a very bad listener. I can't listen to podcasts. I read. When I read, I remember and I retain and I understand better than when listening to podcasts. But people are different. And the same way how you present, how you explain certain things, some people may understand different things. This is why you have to be ultra explicit and take into consideration that every single person is different. We all process information differently, so we have to be very careful with how we communicate. But unfortunately, we take communication as a by default skill. We all can communicate, but that's not actually true. Even, like, for example, I find myself, for me, it's much easier to communicate in written form. Like, allow me to write, and I'm gonna express myself in ways that makes me happy. When I'm talking, after a conversation ended, I'm left with the feeling that, I didn't say that, I didn't articulate that well, all this self-editing that happens post a conversation.
By the way, I really like some of these points that you made. And I think it's like, again, it's like totally fair of like how you sort of approach the thing. But at the heart, I really like the idea of like the product truth. Like that's such a great place, like being clear on what that is. And then thinking about how users learn and consume information. Like, you were saying like some prefer like videos, some prefer written text, some prefer audio only, So, and then you're kind of meeting them where they are. But only once the product truth is clear, then you can branch off and create whatever you need to create. So that's actually really brilliant. I actually really like. Do you use this? I think I didn't see the. Maybe that you have added this on your site. I didn't see it. Do you write anywhere product truth anywhere? I think you should use that. That's really good. Because I was looking at your site. I don't think you write product truth anywhere.
No, I don't think I.
You should use it. That's really good.
Do you know about the term the speed of truth inside a company?
No. Tell me more.
Okay. So the speed of truth is how fast information travels from different departments. Like, for example, you have the product team who launched a feature or a major capability. How fast the product marketer will know about it, how fast the digital marketing team will know about it, how fast CX will know about it, how fast the sales team will know about it, and whether they will find the same information about this specific capability in the same place. Because if the engineer stopped someone in the hallway, for example, a product marketer, and they explain the capability in one way, but then someone wrote it explaining it in slightly different, the product marketer responsible for launching the feature will have a different understanding from the sales team. So these are very sensitive nuances that we have to consider, like the product truth and how fast these truths and how accurately, not only fast, but how accurately it travels from team to team to team.
This is a really great observation. So how do you, when you work with companies, and like you said, I think you described like in 2-3 past examples that you did like an audit first, but then post this audit. Actually, hold on a second. Let me sort of reframe the whole question. So let's say if somebody calls you in, what does your process look like? Like, what are like the stages that you go through? And then we'll go deeper into each stage.
I started as an auditor. Then I realized that the last thing teams want is someone to come there with the red tape and tell them, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you have to fix, Here's a huge list of things you have to fix. And I realized that actually that's not a way to win a team's heart. When you go with a list of things that they have to fix. So now, like during this month of quiet time without me being on LinkedIn, I really took a time to rethink my approach. And I realized that what actually companies need is someone to go there, own the problem and to fix it, to help the team to actually use these fixes, but not without creating, heavy bureaucracy or heavyweight systems. Creating something, a lightweight system that the moment you exit the team, they can use it. So I realized that I want to rethink my role and become like a fractional lead on messaging and communication inside B2B SaaS companies for a specific time frame to actually fix the problem. I don't want to go there and tell them this is what you need to fix. I want to go there and say, I can help you fix it. I'm not going to steal your time. I just need some support to understand things around and to actually maybe coach some people from your team and build some rituals about around the new way of using messaging and communicating with each other. So yeah, this is something very new. This is something that I came up with during this month. And I even have planned to engage with some fractional leads, maybe have some meetings to actually understand, to go deeper into this role. Because, I worked with SaaS companies as part of their teams. But now I want to be to own a very specific problem where I can go in, see all the confusion, stay with the complexity and ambiguity and uncertainty, stay with it, absorb everything, create a new software taxonomy with the communicating with the team, because I'm not there to impose a way. I'm there to make this interaction easier, to facilitate this interaction and come up together with a product truth, translate this into different communication assets from website, demo, everything that is massive and requires reworking. And only after that, create shared vocabulary around specific things, around the product, around the... there is a term, it's escaping me right now. It was my favorite term, I'll remember it, about the vocabulary. And create a system that allows teams to keep the chaos slightly less. To keep the mess slightly, toned down, for them to be faster in their communication and their messaging. So, and this is something I didn't do yet. This is a new offer that I came up with during this month, because I stayed and I thought carefully about my observations when engaging with B2B SaaS companies, and I realized that they actually need someone inside the team to own this problem, not just an outsider to wave a list of things that this is what you're doing wrong.
Right. And so for this first phase, even before you begin this first, I'm curious, who is the person that would typically bring you in? And are they the same person who you end up working with? Because at what level is it the PMM, the product manager role? Is it the chief product officer? Who's the person that typically will look at someone like you to be brought in? What's the
I don't think that someone is searching for that. That's the thing, because no one is talking about these things. We are still talking about copy fixes and surface level fixes. So I don't know. It's an adventure for me. I know that I have specific executives that I am in contact now and having conversations, validating my approach, maybe offering some parts of this global offer and testing. Because, the last thing I want to do is to work on something that is not meaningful and is not satisfying and doesn't bring real results. And this is why I looked deeper into the problem. And this is why I focused on taxonomy, because I truly believe that this needs to be fixed. And I truly believe in that. So maybe it's some way of creating a new category. Maybe it's a crazy thing of me wanting to do that. But I truly believe that this is a problem to be fixed, even if maybe not all people say it.
Actually, you know what? You're actually right, because this is actually one sort of nuance here, is that you're not at the marketing and that surface layer. You're actually a couple of layers before that. So I think it's Like the problem would be like how to avoid being categorized and lumped into like the people who do the copywriting, and you're actually a couple of steps before that, and it's actually, you could say it's a higher altitude problem, or you could say it's a deeper problem, whatever way you want to frame it. Yeah. So I think you said that you're just kind of, you had like an epiphany or like over this last month of like how you want to sort of package what you do. So first of all, it makes a lot of sense that organizing principles and creating that shared knowledge that can everybody look at the same truth. Because sometimes it's like that elephant problem, right? Somebody's touching the tail, somebody's touching the trunk, somebody's touching a leg, and everybody has the truth, but a different version of the truth. How do you get everybody to see the full elephant at all times?
And not only that, there are also internal politics, which are very delicate to navigate. And when you bring someone from outside, this person doesn't see the politics. It just shows what it is and the results of those decisions that were based on politics. So I'm not in the position, I mean, if you bring an outsider, there will be no people offended, let's say. Because we also have to take into consideration, the particularities of. I heard this term from John Cutler, I think, corporate anthropology, and I think it's fascinating because there are so many nuances working with this type of teams, and it has so many layers of complexity. And how do you market that? That's difficult.
I actually find that you've carved out like a really very interesting niche for yourself. It's like, it's a couple of layers deep. It's very close to like the actual engineering, and like you're working closely more with like the product team. And then at the same time, you want to go after the industries where nobody wants to go after. So it's like even better. I like that. I really, really like that actually. So now, when you go in and you're doing this audit, right? So that's the framing. You're thinking about shared knowledge. You're thinking about politics. You're thinking about all these different elements. Now, inertia.
And change management.
You're spot on. Because companies are just a group of people, right? And people have people problems. And when you have a lot of different people, then there's people problems into 10, into 8, into 100.
Exactly. How do you navigate that? And this adds even more difficulty and complexity to communication, to team communication, to how the product is communicating externally. Yeah.
So then my natural question would be then, what are the initial steps that you start taking to get buy-in, to get people aligned, to start people even seeing things in a way that you would want them to see, like the product truth, like forget you're this role, forget you're that, forget the politics. Let's all align on this one. Like, how do you even begin that process?
Okay, so first step is invisible content marketing.
Invisible content marketing.
Yes, what this means. I just invented a fancy word. Maybe it doesn't say anything. But approaching executives or product marketers that I know and offering them a free audit based on the website and asking for their feedback and validation and direction. Like,
I see. You're talking about the sale. You're talking about the like how you do the sales part, like the prospecting.
Yeah, I mean, not sales, but okay. So maybe I didn't understand the question.
No. This is actually great that you're sharing this. I was actually asking, like, once somebody actually engages with you, they're like, okay, Victoria, you've agreed on an amount and they've signed the dotted line and it's your first day inside the company. Mm-hmm. What are you doing then? But by the way, if you want to share, like, how do you actually, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is they're like, how do you actually how do you land a client? I think that's what you were talking about. And then okay, go ahead. Tell us about how do you actually land the client. And then my question is, once you land the client, once they give you the keys to the castle, how do you start winning people over?
Okay, so this thing with free auditing It's something that I'm not offering it on the website because I want to approach specific companies, and I want to it's not exactly with the intention to sell, but with the intention to see whether they see what I see, whether the way I'm articulating makes sense to them, whether I can create a wow effect with what I'm offering, and then strengthen a connection I already have or build a new connection that I didn't have until then. So this is a gradual step-by-step approach to this entire thing. Like one can talk about a subject for a public, like LinkedIn, for example, or you can also create this invisible content marketing where you go to specific people and you create assets for them specifically. But real, assets that can make them say like, wow, okay, so I sense that there was a problem and now I see it. This is my approach at the moment.
By the way, I have a similar approach.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Mind sharing?
Yeah, I like if I'm interested in working with someone, I'll put together something for them and I'll be like, here you go. And
the thing is, sorry, tell me.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing. Like I don't confuse the podcast that I'm doing, the content that I'm putting on LinkedIn. I don't confuse that with actual sales work that I do.
Yeah.
And the sales work that I do is I literally just find companies and clients that I think will be fun to work on, and I just approach them. I'll do something preemptively, proactively, and be like, hey, listen, this is not a solution. I just wanted to share what a different perspective could look like. You could totally just delete this if this looks like something stupid. And so I do that all the time. I do probably like 3 or 4 of those a month.
I have a slightly different approach.
We are so alike, by the way. I'm actually surprisingly shocked a little bit.
No, but there is maybe a difference, and maybe you also do that. But I like to approach the person first and ask for permission for me to take a look, because I don't want to come as an unsolicited advisor.
Right.
Because I know that this may make the person like be wary or feel like as if like who are you? Why are you telling me? Like you don't even know the reality of our company. Like let me be like I'm approaching people and asking for permission to do that.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. Keep going. So, by the way, folks listening, this is how you actually land clients that you want to work with. Listen to Victoria carefully.
And here you have a very important caveat, clients you want to work with. Because it's one thing when you have inbound and you may land a client that you may not be so interested in their software, or there might be some other issues. It's different when you go and you actually identify things that excite you. No?
Exactly. Yes. Be at the cause, not the effect.
I had a different way of seeing things. I thought that maybe inbound is the best, but now I'm changing my mind because of that. Because I want to work with specific companies, and of course I have to approach those specific companies. Like no one reads your mind, unfortunately.
How are we so alike and have lived such different lives? But I love it. Keep going. Yes.
And to thank you. And to answer your question, I'm gonna give you a very maybe weird answer, but I am staying away from frameworks and rigid methodologies, because every team is different. How you enter a team, for example, if you enter through the help of an executive, is different if you enter the team introduced by the product marketer. Like the circumstances actually dictate what is the right way to approach the work with a team. The type of people, the cultural codes, if it's distributed or remote, because I now prefer to work with remote and distributed teams, although I worked with teams that are all together in one office and me there separately on the screen talking about messaging. But I'm realizing that most communication issues happen in distributed remote team, obviously, because of how things work, So yeah, I don't have one unifying answer to your question, because it all depends. And I think this is my answer to most questions. It depends. Give me the circumstance and I will tell you more.
Actually, that is a really good answer, because and I have, this is so weird and funny, but we're so alike. I have a similar philosophy where I'm not married to any framework, any one thing. It's like, what's the context? What's the thing? Who am I talking to? Now, I have a gazillion tools and frameworks. I have hammers, I have drills, I have everything. What is needed in this situation? You know, in some cases, I'm like, forget about slides. You don't need slides, right? Like, I don't even do polished slides at all, right? Again, it all depends. What's the context? What's the situation? I don't try to put on a show for no reason, right?
Exactly.
In some cases, there is some theater required to wow and excite people, but there's a context for that. And there's a context of like, let's just get through the thinking and get to what we, sometimes it's more tactical. Sometimes like, let's take a step back. So I totally agree with you. I'm not married to anything. I'm like,
exactly.
I'm not even married to my own ideas. I'm like, well, what's a better way to do this? What do you think?
Exactly. Yeah. I started thinking that there is one solid taxonomy that approach to taxonomy that has to work for all companies. No, that's not true. For example, you have object-oriented taxonomy. You have event management platforms, right? And event managers, they understand when they see, they don't see actions, but they see objects like registration, check-in, guests, agenda, attendees. Like, it makes sense. They can connect very easily the dots. So the taxonomy approach should be different depending on the industry, on the user, on the, so again, same as you, I'm not married to frameworks. Like, it was difficult in the beginning, but then I said, like, okay, like, you can't have just one solution for all of them. They're so different. Like, this is absurd to try to fit every single company into one framework. This doesn't work like that.
You know, I think we're going to create this new category called professionally single.
That's a good one.
I didn't invent this. I just thought of it. Maybe somebody's already sort of articulated this better than I have before. But yeah, I think that is the right approach, is that you have to kind of go into each situation with like a child's mind, and then bring in the scientist part later and be like, okay, let me absorb everything. Let me understand what your context is, where you're suffering. And wait, are you the person who likes more detail? Are you like the person who's like, keep me away from the detail? Like, who are you even interacting with? Like, that's also like, there's so much context, subcontext, situation, you know?
Exactly. And it's not only that. I talked about politics, but for example, you're engaging with a team that is extremely stubborn and highly opinionated, which I absolutely love about B2B SaaS, because I believe that one way to differentiate is when the founders are extremely opinionated about how things have to be done, and they embed this into the product, and the product has to be the specific way. And you go there with your mentality that is step 1, step 2, step 3, and they say, no, there are no steps altogether. We don't do steps here. It's like, of course, you have to have the mind an open mind to absorb all that. Say, okay, I understand now your context. I respect your context, because there is so much work that they've already done. You can't go there and just cut and kill everything. You have to absorb and recognize the work they have done, and then allow them and help them to fix actually the mess that just happened. It's nobody's fault. This is what I'm saying. It's nobody's fault. This happens, but there are ways to fix the messaging and communication mess. Yeah.
You know what this reminded me of something is, so when I had just like finished like I studied like applied advertising in like college, and then I went and studied like postgrad in marketing communications, and I was like, I know all these words, I know all these frameworks. I felt so cool. I was like, I can't wait to like tell clients like, oh, the marketing mix or this thing, right? I thought oh my God. And then, you know, what happened is that I learned everything in English. And this is going to tie back to languages in a second. And then when I started working, basically what happened is once I kind of finished studying, I joined an agency, worked there for like a year. And then I was like, fuck it, I don't want to do this. I want to do my own thing. And I started my own agency. But when I started my own agency, I was in India. Mm-hmm. And all my clients, most of their primary language was Hindi or Punjabi. Okay. Right? And these are like these old dudes who've never heard of MBA and stuff. So I couldn't actually even communicate anything that I'd learned, because they didn't even speak in English. So I had to speak in Hindi or Punjabi, and I didn't have any words to describe what I had learned. And so I'd actually had to force myself to communicate in a very simple way. And what that did for me was I realized that I actually just need to understand the fundamentals of what's important, what to prioritize. But how I communicate that, because I was forced to do it in Hindi and Punjabi and not English, and I couldn't use any of those crutch words, I had to like really deeply understand what I was saying.
Wow.
Because otherwise it'd be like if I was, let's say if I was talking to somebody, I was designing a restaurant, right? And instead of saying, the user experience or, your guest experience or and all that stuff, I'd be like, just think of it. I would have to like really boil it down to like the essence of it. I'd be like, when somebody is thinking like hungry, and they could like, let me actually give you a little bit more context. They would be like, we need like a big signage here, and I'd be like, okay. And there's like the marketing way to like talk about signage and all that stuff. But then I would be like, hold on a second. I was like, look, your restaurant isn't a place where it's sort of hidden away. You're not like, even if you put up a big sign, who's going to see this? Number one. Number two is the way we're thinking about creating this restaurant. And this is like, we're creating this restaurant, right? This is like, and I'm like, you have to think about this. The person has decided to come to your restaurant even before they've left the house. Yeah. So I'm using very simple language, but in Hindi to talk to them. They're like, yeah. They're not even blinking anymore. They're like so focused. I'm like, yeah. So we have to get into their mind that this is a destination place and not something you just do impromptu just to fill your stomach. Like KFC, McDonald's, those are like you drive by, you're like, I'm feeling hungry. Let me just grab a quick. I was like, when we're thinking about this, we have to think about it in this way. They're like, yes. I'm like, that's why it should be premium. There should be more. They're like, yes. I didn't use any marketing words here. So that language barrier really forced me to really deeply think about what I had learned. And then how do I communicate it in a way that is in a language that they would understand, which is Hindi and Punjabi. So that it just forced me to really deeply understand my subject.
That's beautiful. Because you realize that you think you understand a concept, but when you force yourself to go so deep into a concept, it's as if you're relearning everything from a reality perspective, like what this actually means in a day-to-day life, not in a book or on a slide. That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. So then it just because of my situation, I had no choice, because if I use any of the words that I'd learned in marketing school, they would just be like, huh?
Yeah, they like, lose them.
I lose them in like slide one.
Yeah,
they're like,
that's true.
They would literally tell me, they'd be like, stop. Like, they're like, Paul, what are you really trying to tell us? Where should I put my money? Like that, they would just, yes. I'm like, okay, stuck. Where should I put my money? I was like, but wait, I have slides. They're like, no. Like, where do I invest this money now? So I had to like really like slow things down for myself. And anyways, so that language thing, that helped a lot because I speak Hindi, Punjabi, and English. All my learning and education is in English, but then the translation had to be in Hindi and Punjabi. So that really helped me deeply understand all these sort of different contexts. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant there, but I just thought that the language was actually helped me become better at what I do than to take away from what I do.
It enriched your expertise.
Yeah. I had no choice. Out of business otherwise.
And look at that, how language shapes how we think. I'm having the same experience because I'm realizing even now in our conversation, I used some terms that maybe I use them too conceptually, and I'm still searching for ways to make it super palpable. And this is an entire process of rethinking, reshaping how you approach this subject, and it's such a painful process, but so necessary.
You know a whole bunch of languages. Which language feels the most natural to you? It's like, I know I used to date this girl from Lithuania, and she's like, Paul, my mouth is hurting from talking in English. She couldn't wait to go back to like her native tongue. Like even when I'm with my friends, I'm usually like between Hindi and Punjabi. It just, because there's like jokes, there's so many things, cultural context that comes from Hindi and Punjabi that with English, you just lose all meaning. So for you, what language is that?
English. I love English.
Okay, English. Okay.
I know that I'm speaking, and I know that I'm still making mistakes, but for years, for decades, you can say that it's English. I always read in English. All my journaling is in English. I even speak with ChatGPT in English. Like even when I'm talking to my parents now, sometimes I'm asking my father a question like in English, asking him like, okay, what's the translation in Romanian, because I'm missing the word. But it's very interesting because I noticed this, and maybe you noticed too. Don't you have the feeling that maybe some aspects of your self change when you change the language, when you switch the language?
I feel like it adds so much more meaning and depth. Like for example, any topic, even though like all my education, everything that I know was in English, but then because I grew up in India and my parents are Indian and I'm Indian, right? Is the having knowledge of like Hindi and Punjabi to experience, it gives me the experience of that culture. It gives me a different way of thinking about things, the outlook of the world, music, culture, movies, cinema. So it exposes you to like for example, when you know Romanian, Spanish, like the intimate knowledge of like how people experience their life. And it's not the same as English speaking, English universe. It's very different. And to experience that like fully authentically, you have to speak in that language, and it's a completely different experience. If you experience, let's say, Spain without the Spanish, is very different from Spain knowing Spanish. So, is that an answer or no? I don't even know.
Yeah, definitely. It's your experience, and I find it interesting. And I'm asking this question every single time I have the occasion, because I notice that when I start speaking in Spanish, my whole mood changes. Suddenly I feel more light, more uplifted. And I'm observing myself from one side, and I'm like wondering, okay, what just happened?
Exactly. Anyways, I think it just really helps to like really deeply understand things from, I'm like, well, how would I explain this thing? Like, let's say if I said product truth, right? Or if I said like inertia, I'm like, okay, explain this to like an entrepreneur, like super successful guy. Again, not confusing. They don't understand English with intelligence or success, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. So I'm talking to a super successful guy. He's like worth hundreds of millions of dollars, doesn't speak any English, right? Has never read a book on marketing, but is really solid business. Like business acumen is like 1000%. So how do you communicate something to them in Punjabi, in English, where they don't feel stupid? They feel like, oh yeah. They feel smarter coming out of the conversation. It feels like two peers are talking and not like I'm telling you don't know this, right?
Yes.
So it's like there's all this complexity and you're like, okay, how do I go and talk to this person?
That's actually a great exercise. And I think I'm going to test it myself. How do I explain the specific concept in a different language? Just for me to understand how I can articulate it differently and then explain it in English without using the difficult term, or because even the word taxonomy, it sounds like from an academic book. Like, give me a break. What do you want from me?
Yeah. So like I remember once my dad's like, so what do you do for a living? My dad. I'm like, I started talking, like even before I started talking, I was like, okay, let me think about it. So I'm like looking up into the ceiling. I'm thinking about how do I explain this to my dad? I start talking, and then when my eyes focus back on my dad, he's fallen asleep.
I'm still trying. My mother understood. My father, I'm still trying with my father. I found myself, I found difficulty in explaining my mother what I'm doing, but my mother is very curious about these things. She's a scientist, so she has like a mind that is already asking me uncomfortable questions. And like, my mother doesn't know anything about SaaS business, but she's asking questions that make me wonder whether I'm in the right path with my offer. No, seriously, I mean, she was very... But talking to her, telling her what I'm doing, actually, it was difficult to translate everything to Romanian, but it is a good exercise. It is a very good exercise.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, we get caught up in the words, and sometimes it's more important to be able to be like, well, what's the meaning behind what I'm saying? What's the core essence of what I'm trying to say? And because only then, because you don't have an equivalent word in that other language, so you're like, okay.
You have to work around the essence and the meaning of this word. Like, this makes me think about a message I received on LinkedIn. And it was a long message explaining me, telling me about a business opportunity. But the guy was using, jargon, heavy business jargon, and some things I wasn't understanding. It's like, okay, he's trying to hide something. He's using language to hide intention. So I started to ask, I said, okay, tell me this, and that. I asked 4 questions. What you're doing, what's your business model, how much I have to pay, what do I get? I mean, very straightforward. And he replied very straightforward, and I realized that this is a business MLM. It's like, okay, not for me, thank you. But the first message was so beautifully polished, and using all these heavy words that it was clear that there was an intention that was masked. I mean, of course, people don't go for MLMs just like that. Like, you have to convince them. So how do you convince them? You make yourself sound smarter, or that you know what you're doing. So no. Language can be used to deceive, to persuade, to hide intention, to signal some arrogance. I mean, not to signal that you're higher than someone when actually you're not. I mean, language is a beautiful thing. Like, it's a very interesting thing.
True. Yeah. All these things bring such good memories, because I know that, like, try to explain like brand in Hindi and Punjabi without using the word brand. And you're like, okay, here we go. So, by the way, that's such a great example, is that I find that the more complex the word somebody uses, they're usually trying to hide something, or they just don't understand the subject really well. So there is some merit in saying, you explain it to me like I'm 5 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, by the way, going back to what we were originally talking about, we went on a completely different tangent, is... So you do this invisible marketing, which I do too. So, which is awesome. And you can pick and choose, we were talking about outbound versus inbound. And so we can pick and choose our clients, and the clients that we want to work with, something that excites us personally. So now let's say you've done the audit after getting permission, and you get your foot in the door. Now, how do you begin the process of alignment, or what do you even think? What are you even thinking? I don't want to put words in your mouth. So you tell me like how you would navigate internally. Like, do you do the buy-in first and then start the work, or as you're doing the work, like what's your process like? So
your question is how I start when I
get in the door.
Yes. That I'm starting the process now to work as a fractional lead.
Yeah.
With a company. Okay. First of all, is analyzing the product, is learning everything I can about the product.
Immersion.
Use immersion, full immersion in the product. User documentation, user interviews, everything that has to do with the people who are using this product, and the teams, the communication assets and artifacts they have, everything from the website, demos, sales decks, sales calls, user onboarding flows, user documents, how they're presenting on different stages the same product. Like, I need to understand everything. And then Also understanding the teams, how they communicate with each other, how they communicate internally, how they go about creating these assets. This is the main, I don't move until I don't stay. I don't understand the chaos in which they live, and I stay with it because I need to absorb and stay with it sometime to decide how we should proceed next.
Oh, I love that. So I think what you're talking about is three things. It's product, like you're immersing yourself in in the product, in the people, and the process. So you understand what are they doing, and you're observing how is this person talking to that person? What's the inertia? What are the politics, right? So I could even say politics. Actually, that's 4 P's. Politics. Okay. Now what happens?
Once this whole thing, my brain absorbs everything, I start with the working on the new public taxonomy, on how we can reorganize this in a way that makes sense, but that respects the user too. Because it's very important. I can go there, I can say, no, we can reorganize the software this way. No. How the user goes through their process. What is their real life workflow when they do this thing? Based on that, this entire work happens, not based on the dashboard or what maybe the engineering team imagines that happens. No. What happens in the real world? And based on that, it starts the whole work on reorganizing the taxonomy. And of course, with the help of the team and with the co-creation. Of course, the thing is that I'm not going there to create more work for the team, but I also not going there to say that, no, your opinion doesn't matter. I am the expert here. I know what I'm doing. No, absolutely not. It's a common process. But of course, the details, the dynamics depend on the team, on the company. And after that, everything is settled, we see how we can translate this taxonomy into a new website structure, into a new demo, into a new structure for the onboarding flow, a new structure for the user docs. For example, I've noticed that sometimes the user documentation that they have in support, because some B2B SaaS companies, they have it public, their knowledge base. Sometimes the knowledge base is much more easier to understand than the website. The knowledge base is so much clearer in what the product does than the website. And the knowledge base is made by other people than the ones that are creating the website. So they're
right. That's so smart. Because it's so you know that saying, right? You can't read your own label. So that section is actually reading your label and telling you, oh, I love that. That's actually really smart. Actually, I would say the first thing, the advice that I would give to people is based on what I'm hearing is go fucking read that section first. Go look at that before, it's there's something I was talking to somebody about yesterday is when somebody has an issue, right? The first level of investment that they're going to do to solve that problem is not necessarily going to be the $50,000 let's invest $50,000 to fix this problem. They're going to be well, what's something small we can do to fix this? They'll probably okay, let's fix the copywriting. Right? Or something. They'll think of something small that they could handle internally, have somebody on the team do. If that doesn't fix the problem, okay, now who else do we need to involve a product person to fix this? So as that stages go on, at some point, they'll need somebody like you because they just can't do it themselves.
Yeah, because it's surface level, fixing surface level symptoms instead of going directly to the root cause and killing every single symptom. Yeah.
And usually what happens is if you think about the buying journey or the if you think about stages of cancer, it's when you are stage 1 versus stage 5, you're okay, I've tried everything, now I'm ready for everything, I want solution now, otherwise I'm gonna die, right? So that level of that changes, and the level of investment you're willing to make and the level of help you're looking to seek out is obviously going to change. But I actually really like the process that you have is now they could be at any of those stages of the stages of cancer, but when you're doing that invisible marketing, you could illuminate that for them and be like, hey, look, you probably tried these 5 things. It didn't solve your problem. And then the reason for that is because it's a deeper problem. And they're like, oh yeah, like if you don't solve this problem now, this is what's going to happen next. Then that's going to happen.
It's going to accumulate more and more.
Yeah. So if you keep applying an appointment and not go for radiation therapy, nothing's going to change.
Nothing will happen.
Yeah. So I really like that. Okay. So now you've got the buy-in, you started the work on the taxonomy, and you're looking at the, what's the truth. I actually really like that you're connecting now the product truth to the user truth. And then connecting them.
Yeah, because it can't be otherwise.
Right.
And this is what the communication, the messaging should reflect. The mirror, the person has to see themselves mirrored in the messaging and the communication. And they have to feel themselves guided through the entire process. So if the taxonomy doesn't reflect their reality, and it's a mix of tools instead of this is how you build a shed, it's very easy to feel lost. And the very interesting thing is that when we consider the website, for example, we as people are quite erratic. We are not linear, and we are discovering a product in a non-linear way. Like we enter through pricing, through home, then a demo, then a product or whatever. And by putting everything in order, you actually allow the website visitor, for example, to know at every single point where they're at and how to go back. It's like a map, like you are here to go there, you go. Because if you map the product around their worldview, their mental way of seeing this specific reality, this specific workflow, and it's so much easier for them to discover the product because they go based on what they know. Like after this step, I need to do the other thing. I go to step 2 and so on and so on. I'm giving very simple examples, like they're stupid, but more or less like if you can replicate the user's mental model on how they approach their problem and how they approach their workflow, their real life workflow, and you can use that as a blueprint to organize the product, how you present the product, you make things so much easier for them when discovering the product.
Oh, I love that, because users are not going to behave how you want them to behave. They're going to do what they want to fucking do. They'll start, You're right, they could start from the pricing page. They could come in through the FAQs. They could come, the entry point could be anything.
Exactly.
But it's our job to make sure that we can give them context and let them know what altitude they're at. And they can see the map and where they're in the map and how to get from one place to the other place. That's very brilliant. I love that. And it's funny, like some of these things seem like
common sense. Yeah, obvious.
Like, yeah, isn't that how it should be?
Yeah.
But it's not.
Unfortunately, it's not the case. Although it's common sense, 100%. This is why I'm saying it's a boring thing, because it's so in your face. It's not shiny at all. It's the most boring thing. For me, it's exciting, but anyway. So yeah.
Where do you start seeing that initial aha with the team that you're working with? Like, what are like the small wins, or like what are the signs where you feel like, okay, this is working, the team is getting aligned, they're beginning to see the bigger picture, they're beginning to see the product truth?
I can give you a recent example. I ran an audit for a SaaS company, and then I asked for the product marketer to share his thoughts on it. And he told me that he shared this audit with the executives, telling me that you actually were like a sniper. It hit us in the places where we know that it hurts, but you actually put into words the things that we were sensing. And this small, tiny recognition that you put words to things we sensed all along, for me is the biggest win. This means that, okay, we are on the right path. Because they are sensing, and I'm here to give vocabulary and understanding to what's actually happening.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I love that. That is philosophically aligned with how I like to approach things as well, is to uncover and not do something to them.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so that is... How is this...
There is already...
I'm just kind of... Okay. How is this even happening? See, this is what happens when you start talking to people and you start like understanding their perspective. You're like, oh my God, I thought this person was completely something else. And
oh, seriously? You thought something else about me?
I had a completely different point of view, but here we go. That's
mind sharing, or it's awful?
always in student mode, always looking to learn. I believe in this, truly believe in this, having a strong opinion, but open to changing it when new information presents itself. So, yeah. Because if you don't have a strong
That's
point
painful.
yeah, because as new information presents itself, you're like, oh, wait a second. Because like I said, I'm not married to my ideas and my opinions. I do have an opinion a lot of times, but I'm open to changing it if new information is presented. And the right information is presented, not just anything. Okay, so I love that. And so one is that the sign that, hey, you know what? We were feeling it. We just couldn't articulate what it was, or we couldn't put our finger on it. And you're like, and it's like what you're actually doing in that moment is like you're describing their problem and articulating it to them in a way that they couldn't do themselves, which, like you were saying,
it's like a mirror. Like, here's an undisturbed mirror.
Yeah. And that's a true demonstration of true understanding. Like, oh, this person like really gets us. And now you become indispensable. Like, you're like, okay, we have to make Victoria work. Like, not work, but like, we have to make a way for her to be leading and guiding this process. Because that also builds trust, right? Like, understanding when you show, like, a lot of times I'm seeing, like, when we talk about that invisible marketing stuff, a lot of people think that, you know, if I just post a lot of content, do all this mental gymnastics of the LinkedIn algorithm, that's what's going to land me the client, but it's not. It's actually these 2-3 things, which are actually common sense. It's like, one, in your case, you ask for permission and you show them a mirror, which demonstrates understanding, which builds huge amount of trust because you just demonstrated your skills, everything that you do without saying that I do this, I'm doing that, I do this for this company. No, you, in that discovery audit doc, you've demonstrated everything they need to know without you ever having to say it. So that's one. And that's true differentiation.
And there is one more way I'm trying to approach this thing. Like, you know, getting to know people inside companies. I recently launched you can say a podcast, but it's not a podcast. It's not a podcast because I'm not doing video audio. But it's a publication on Substack called Complexity Deconstructed.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Well, for folks listening, I'll put the link in the show notes.
And next week I will have my first guest. I want to talk to people inside businesses and corporations that are holding the complexity and are working with complexity. People that are not afraid of complexity. They're not flattening nuances. They see it and they operate with it in different circumstances. For example, you can have a very brilliant team manager who is holding the complexity of putting together the communication for different teams, and he's living this day in, day out. Or there you have an interesting business owner who creates personalized AI solutions for fintech companies with regulations and compliance integrated, like all these areas of complexity that we're not talking about. Because how I see it is that the world is getting more and more complex. We're adding more and more complexity, and AI won't be something that removes the complexity. I think it's going to bring even more complexity. But on the other hand, we see this social media bubble where everything is flattened. And I want to bring back the conversation about what is complexity, how we can operate with it at different levels in business. And this way, it's also an occasion for me to get to know people inside companies, not to sell them, but to actually go even deeper into this reality. Yeah.
Well, clearly you're passionate about this, so I love that idea. That's fantastic. In fact, you know, when I talk to other people, also they're like, you know, if you write anything in nuance, it doesn't get any views or engagement. If you write like symptom, surface level stuff, it gets so much engagement. Like a really good example is like, you know, when they say like this is probably the most common one. It's like, how do you show up confident? You're like, well, you should sit up straight. You should, you know, shake hands firmly. You know, all that like surface level stuff. That's like at the symptom level. But if there's no confidence on the inside, no matter how like straight you stand, it's like if you're like, let's say you give the same instructions to somebody who's an introvert versus somebody who's an extrovert. Even though they might mimic or emulate that behavior, but it's not going to come from that authentic place. And humans are so smart, they can tell when somebody's faking it or not faking it. They're like, you know, the guy was like doing everything, but something was off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? When you know, like there's a mess at home, you know, your bills are not paid. No matter how much you're polished in a suit you're wearing, you're just not going to have that demeanor, the way you carry yourself, because the cause is not addressed.
I like to say that in these circumstances, it's the nervous system that leads, it's not the brain. You can fake whatever you fake. If the nervous system decided something else for you, I mean, you can try whatever technique you want to try. It's not going to work.
Exactly. That is so spot on, because your subconscious brain is basically controlling everything. And you have, yeah. Tell me more. I see that you're lighting up. What do you...
No, sorry.
No, go ahead. Tell me. I'm so curious.
Maybe I'm extremely wrong, but I do believe that the subconscious mind is actually the nervous system that sends specific impulses like freeze, fawn, flight, and we may have different traumas and different stuff like, and this is actually the things that we're not unaware of. It's not a secret chamber inside the brain that doesn't let us go into our deepest, intimate desires or I don't know what. I think things are much more pragmatic than that.
So first of all, I'm not a neuroscientist or I'm just a student of life, and I'm always trying to learn new things. And there's a couple of books that I read because I'm really fascinated by this topic as well. So there's one guy, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he wrote this book called The Biology of Belief. And he talks about epigenetics. He talks about, you know, how the brain gets programmed when you are a child till the age of 7. Because you're in like a theta wave state, which is why like kids are able to absorb so much so quickly, and their imagination is so high. Yeah. Then there's another guy called Dr. Joe Dispenza. I forgot the name of his book, but both those books I read, they just blew my mind. Then there's another book by Yuval Noah Harari. It's called Sapiens. And if you read those 3 books, you have like a completely new lens on like subconscious, the mammalian, the mammalian brain that we have. It doesn't even speak English. So like we respond to certain things. We don't even realize we're responding to them. Like respond to authority, our response to like, you know how like humans have a natural tendency to like follow the leader, like somebody who has more certainty than you. So like cult leaders, religious followers, celebrities. Like that's just, it's not even language. It's not English. It's just your biology is leading you that way. Anyway, so those 3 books were really interesting. I'll also link them in the show notes for people listening if they're curious. Really, if you want to understand like how we think, what leads us to where we are today, those 2 books are really great. And epigenetics, they talk about epigenetics and how our genes behave in the environment that we're in. Like when a child is in a mother's womb, if the mother's stressed out, the child is going to have certain symptoms even before they're born. But if the mother's like in a really happy place, a place of abundance, her mental health is really great. When the child is born, it's going to be born with some of those. Epigenetics is, that really great stuff there. And so this psychology stuff, it's like a lot of the things that we think we're doing very logically are actually emotionally decisions made that are then broken down logically.
I had a period when I was into these authors and books, but I removed myself from that space because I believe that it brings some new age stuff, that it creates narratives around the much simpler mechanics. At least this is my perspective. And the authors I recommend is, I also have 3 authors, 3 books. And the first one is Vilaynur Subramanian Ramachandran. I'm not sure if I pronounce his name correctly. He's an Indian-American neuroscientist, an amazing professional. I listened to some of his podcasts. He has a book, The Phantoms in the Brain, or he's studying specific neuroconnections in the brain. And he has some very interesting stories of people who, for example, after accidents, they would recognize their mother or wife it was the wife. They would recognize the voice of their wife on the phone, but they wouldn't recognize her when she was in front of them, in front of the husband. And some other things that he debunked a lot of psychotherapy. He's from my understanding, he is taking a much more pragmatical perspective on how the body works, how the brain works, and how the nervous system works. Then we have Oliver Sacks, an absolutely amazing neurologist. The book I recommend is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. He has a very interesting clinic experience, and he also talks about in a very pragmatic way, about how we work as humans. And then recently I discovered the polyvagal theory that has to do with the nervous system, but also from a medical perspective. And there is a book called The Pocket Guide to the Polyvagal Theory, and by Stephen Porges. And a 4th book, the author, maybe it's a bit controversial, or maybe not, I don't know, but it's Gabor Mate, The Myth of Normality.
That guy is super solid.
Yeah.
Gabor Mate is, I've heard some of his podcasts. I haven't read any of his books, but that's the one I do recognize. Super solid guy. I crossed him once in Toronto. I was walking down the street and I was like, wait, isn't that Gabor Mate?
Wow, okay. Oh, I read one of his books years ago, and it was very helpful to understand myself. And now I started to read the book, The Myth of Normality, where he talks about social, cultural cues and how they form the nervous system, and how every single nervous system is so different. And for you, one thing can be traumatizing. For another person, they wouldn't even care about it. And this is so random. And I think that when we talk about these things, now I'm trying to take a perspective that is ultra pragmatic, that it's removed from everything that has to do with psychotherapy or New Age spirituality, because I believe that there is so much richness in the biology of us as humans, but we just don't understand, actually. We don't understand it yet, and we started now to actually dig deeper. And maybe even there are some ideas that maybe we have psychological problems that we think that are psychological when they're actually physiological problems, and they have to be approached completely different, that you can't talk your way out of a problem, that it's a different approach necessary. Because even when you think about traumas are stored in the nervous system, in the body, not in the mind. The mind is just an amazing, a brilliant pattern identifier machine that makes sense. It's a sense-making machine. It's just, you feel sad because maybe it's something somatically, but the brain will jump into I feel sad because that or that, choose my story, choose your adventure. When actually the nervous system is no, I'm just sad because I'm sad, give me a break. But the brain will immediately come with the story. So yeah.
Right. I think what you're kind of, hopefully I captured this. I capture this in the best form. Is it's anytime something happens to us, we're constantly doing 2 things. We're putting a meaning on something, and then that meaning leads to an emotion, and that emotion leads to then stories, behavior, and all that stuff. So 2 people could be experiencing the same thing, and this is very common among siblings, for example. Your parent, you're in a similar situation, but when you grow up and you realize your sibling has had a different experience in the same household, same everything, whereas you had a different experience because you put a different meaning on the whole thing. So I think hopefully I captured that. I think that's what you were hinting at.
Yes. The meaning-making machine is tireless. But also the same two siblings may have different nervous systems and they are experiencing reality differently. Like, think about, like, what do you think is the difference between an introvert and an extrovert?
Well, introverts are way cooler and... No, just kidding. What's the main difference between an introvert and an extrovert? Well, okay. Well, one thing could be, the same thing for one gives you energy and for the other one, it drains you. So like a simple expression of that would be interacting with so many people, going out. After you've done that for 3 hours, when you come home, are you excited? Are you energized? Or are you drained and you're like, I don't want to see people for like 2 days now? I'm the kind of person who gets totally drained. I'm like, once I go hang out with people, I come back home like, okay, I don't even want to look at a mirror for 2 days.
Yes, but what's interesting about the difference between introverts and extroverts is their nervous system. Because the introverts are absorbing absolutely everything. Their nervous system absorbs every single bit of information about their surroundings. It happens by default because this is how our nervous system is. With extroverts, they are not capturing. Their nervous system is much more less porous than in the case of the introverts. So they're capable of putting themselves more into situations where lots of things are happening, lots of stimulus, because their nervous system is reacting differently to the stimulus than in the case of the introverts. So it's a nervous system feature. It's not a personality aspect, it's not a mental aspect, it's just how the nervous system carries itself through the world.
Do you also find that there's like, because there's a lot of those characteristics are to do with like emotional intelligence, like really high emotional intelligence is like you're constantly like picking up like subtle cues, expressions of like, and you can actually read the room, read the person you're talking to much faster than most people.
This also is the case. This is also the case, but what I would add in this case, that I would think that this nervous system is in a freeze mode maybe, and it's preempting every possible threat. And this is why it's so aware of all the cues happening around. And it's reading everything. So there are more nuances, I believe. But I may be wrong because, again, it's a topic that is interesting for me, but I know very little about that.
I definitely don't see this as like either or. I'm seeing this as like both. Like one is the physiological aspect of it and one is the mental aspect, like emotional intelligence. Like how does the physiology of the body react in that moment and behave? And then sort of how's your brain interpreting all that? So it's like, I'm thinking it's like a combination, not like this or that. It's like stacks of like things happening.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm so fascinated by these topics because it's like, ultimately, it's like there's a lot of stuff, again, going back to like that LinkedIn surface level crap. It's like, be confident, stand up straight. Well, if your physiology, your emotional intelligence, who you are, you're broke, you've got so much debt, you're like feeling like shit, you just come out of a relationship, everything's going in a mess. How are you going to do that? Like, how are you going to be at the cause versus the effect? All right. Okay. We went on a completely different tangent here, but kind of going back to where we were earlier is, so you were saying, like that early sign of success is demonstrating understanding, and that builds trust, and that is differentiation. And that's one of the reasons why people want to work with you. They're like, they don't care. Like in that moment, when you've given them that audit that demonstrates true understanding, they don't need to see a website. They don't need to see past case studies. They're like, yeah, she knows exactly what she's doing. And that's why it's like so easy to get lost in, if you want to become a solopreneur, you should make a website. You should do these 10 different things. You don't need to do any of that stuff. Even when I used to run my own agency, we didn't have a website. We had nothing. All I would do is literally just like find a client that I thought was interesting. And we would just without even talking to them. Just
customizing everything.
Yeah, we would make something and just go to them. And I remember the first time I did that, I walked into this client. I'm like, look, I know that you've been doing business in a certain way. Here's just a different perspective on what you could be doing. I could be completely wrong here, but just here's what it is. And then I had all these printouts. I took them all out. And I put them all in their office, like a little cabinet was. The guy was like, I can't believe you guys did all this. He literally took out his checkbook and he just signed an amount. And he's like, here you go. This is just for the effort. That guy was so, and like that worked so well that I just always did that now. Like that just became my default. So I never thought that client didn't care about my thought leadership, my website, my awards. I didn't even talk about myself. It was literally, it's not I'm trying to do something. I was like truly obsessed with their business, what they're trying to do. And so no point I was like, oh, but my agency has this framework, this process. This is how we do it. We never talked about any of that.
Beautiful. And actually, you're opening my eyes right now. And I want to ask you, because I have this barrier and maybe a necessary need to ask for permission to do that. But you just went there without a previous interaction with this person. You just went there and you said like, look, I love what you're doing. Okay. I mean, it was basically an unsolicited approach.
Yeah. I've been hiding in your bushes for the last month. Here's what I used to see you do in the kitchen, in the bedroom.
And how do you think? How do you think? I mean, because I was always wondering, should it be should I ask for previous permission or should I just go? Because this previous permission adds even more friction. Like I'm demanding for them to give me an answer. But at the same time, who am I to go there and put a document on their table and say like, look, I just did that. I don't know, just my mental conversation I have with myself, and I'd like to see your perspective on that.
Well, just the framing, I guess. Well, first of all, it doesn't work every time. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this is the one way to do it. Asking for permission is actually perfectly fine. In fact, actually, sometimes it's not even the information that you're presenting, but who's presenting that information is also important. So sometimes it's like, I have a perspective and I want to get it across to this person. But if I send it directly, they're not even going to read it or they're not even going to consider it. But if I can find a common person between me and this person and then be like, hey, listen, I actually was working on this and I thought, and then they'll be like, oh, actually, I know this person. I know they've been struggling with this. Here, I'll pass it on. And now again, like we were going back to, the context is so important. There's no one right way. So like sometimes it's like I make a calculated, educated guess. I'm like, well, what do I need to make this happen? So I'll be like, okay, well, if it's going to slow me down too much, I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to go for it. If I'm like, okay, I actually know somebody who's a common contact, I can make an intro and then share this with them. Okay, I'll go that way. So I kind of pick and choose my adventure based on the context and what I have available. But I don't let the lack of stuff stop me from doing what I need to do. So if I don't have a connection, like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm still going to go and present. Sometimes I get radio silence. Sometimes somebody's like, oh, this is great. I really thought this is a thoughtful thing that you did. But we have this covered for now. Okay, no problem. Okay. Recently, I met with somebody and they're like, when you had come like 10 years ago and you had presented this, it was actually really, really cool stuff. It just, I regret not executing on some of those things. I'm like, okay. So, but the thing is that I'm obsessed with it. I like doing it, so I just keep doing it. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. Yes. I don't care. I just keep moving forward. I don't like sulk about it, think about it too much. And I always think about it like, well, like for example, I did recently, I reached out to David. They make protein bars. I was like, I was going to do an article and thing on it anyways. why not just first approach them, see how they respond? If they respond well, great, that could lead to something. If it doesn't, it's just a great article that I could put on my blog. Okay, done. So it's a win-win for me no matter what the outcome is. Like, I'm great, I'm amazing, I'm going this way. If you're coming along, sure. If you're not, I'm still going that way. Like, that's my philosophy. So, like, if I have to do something, I'm not going to wait for somebody else. You know? Because otherwise, like, I hate waiting. So, okay, that went in a really deep, weird, like, side tangent thing. What about you? How do you sort of think about these things?
About solicited and unsolicited.
Yeah. Or just life in general. Like,
that's very broad.
because this is like, these are like just philosophies for life. Like, if you have to do something, just go keep doing it. You know, if other people want to join the fun, great. If they don't, I'm still going to go travel to this place. I'm still going to do this thing. I'm still going to whatever, right? I'm going this way. You're coming along or not is your choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just, yeah, that kind of drives a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. Okay. Coming back to the engagement stuff that we're talking about. So I think for people listening and they're thinking about getting leads, you know, this is something that people struggle with a lot is how do I find a client? How do I, and what they, in order, what actually happens is, you know, when you think about like, okay, I need work, right? And I need to generate revenue. That's the problem I need to solve. What they'll, instead of going after that specific problem, we'll start like doing all these other things that don't do that thing. So I'll start writing like content on LinkedIn. I'll start doing all this other stuff. Oh, let me go start a podcast. Let me go start doing like this stuff. Let me go do all this stuff. Versus like literally what you and I are doing is like, well, let's just go find the client. Let's go solve a problem for them that might be painful, that they might not even be aware of, or they might be aware of. And like, that's it. You don't need a website. All this other stuff is just nice haves. They're not a must have to get client work. I mean, that would be one big takeaway from this whole conversation for people. If if you are stuck and you don't have a list of clients and you don't know where to start, forget all this other stuff. If you have even no online presence, doesn't matter. If you literally just go obsess over a client, like that's your business, that's going to show, and that's going to demonstrate your understanding. That's going to build a trust, and you'll get a foot in the door.
Exactly. This is something that hit me actually this month while I was taking a break from LinkedIn, that it doesn't matter posting, not posting. What matters is engaging with people, going into DMs, talking to people. And not with the obsession, you know, with outbound cold emailing and with the obsession to sell, but with the curiosity to see what they're doing and how you can help them or how you can learn from them or just connect. And because I truly believe in serendipity, but this happens when you are putting yourself out there and you have something to offer.
Yeah. I think it's like, I also think about like sometimes like this, just give away the stuff, you know, just like give away. The more you give, the more karma is going to work and it's going to come back to you. And just keep giving. Like, this is what, like, my philosophy my dad had. Like, I was like, when I was a kid, my dad's like, I went to my dad. I'm like, Dad, one of my friends, he's asking for some money. Should I give it to him? And my dad's like, He like sat back and thought about it for a second. He's like, is it like a good friend of yours? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. He's like, well, okay, you can give him the money, but never expect it back because that's going to ruin your friendship. And I was like, okay. So if you want to give it, just give it. Like, don't then think about it at all.
Don't expect anything back in return, because even when you provide these free audits or what you're doing, you know, the documents are providing these people. People sense when you expect something back, and it creates a very unpleasant feeling. and unpleasant. Like I own that to you, and I didn't even sign for that, you know. And this is the last thing you want to create. This is the last feeling you want to generate in someone else.
Yeah. Just keep moving forward. Just the next. Keep going. Okay, Victoria, this has been a super fun conversation. I have one fun activity for you. It is 3,000 questions all about me. You have to pick a number between 1 and 3,001.
2,345.
2,000. Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, hold on. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a very specific number, by the way. Okay. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. You're like, this goes back to that comment. It's not that complicated. It's more simple. Okay. So, okay. This is a fun question for you. The question is, what are my favorite electronics?
Favorite? Kindle.
Kindle?
Yes, and I want a Scribble Kindle, the one that I can make notes.
Wait,
This
on
will
Kindle
be
you
my
can't make
favorite.
notes?
The white paper one. I mean, there are different models, and now they have Kindle Scribble, or Scribe. No, Kindle Scribe, and now they launched. It was from 2021 or 22, and now they launched a new model from 2024, 25, and both of them allow you to take notes. But the last model allows you to actually make notes in the book, in the on the margins or in between the lines, and it's super cool.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So, Victoria, today was a super fun conversation. We went down different rabbit holes. We talked about not only messaging and stakeholders and inertia and all that stuff, the corporate stuff, but we also talked about like psychology and language, the role of language. We went down sort of different rabbit holes and explored the conversation. I actually really enjoyed the conversation. For me, it felt like just 15 minutes of conversation. I don't know about you. If you're pulling teeth.
No, same. I enjoyed it very much. It was very interesting to have this conversation with you. So thank you very much for inviting me. It was unexpected. See, LinkedIn is not so useless after all.
Yeah, LinkedIn, right. Here we are telling people, don't worry about LinkedIn. The irony.
The irony is.
So, one thing is, where can people find you? That's one thing you're going to share. The other thing is, what's a message that you would like to leave the audience with? So I would start with there, and then where they can find you.
Maybe the only message that comes to mind right now is to give complexity a chance. And whenever you see an idea that is flattened to one sentence or to something that feels just simple, don't take that as a truth because only it feels simple, but open yourself to nuances and context, and maybe bring in some more details to that and enrich the perspective you have on things. And apart from that, stay away from generalizations. At least this is what I would do, because I can't stand is a very harsh way of saying it, but I don't like generalizations because I feel that they miss context. And there is so much richness that is missed because of that. So yeah, that's what I would have to say right now. And where they can find me at saasminds.com.
Love it. Well, there you have it, folks. That's Victoria. What a great conversation. And maybe in the near future, we'll bring you back because there's just so much more to talk about. I feel like we didn't even touch the surface.
Feel the same. Yeah,
Irony and pun intended.